How do ADHD and symptoms of grief overlap? So, a person with ADHD and dealing with grief can face very similar symptoms. So, having trouble focusing and having a low attention span. So, I could only deal with a few things a day, and I felt very burnt out and exhausted. I couldn't hold on to conversations or even with work or committing to something. I didn't really have the mental energy for that. Also being very hyperactive, so being constantly on the move, having so much energy in yourself, and also the very intrusive and intense emotions and thoughts which come in waves that can really consume a human being. And really, like, with ADHD, I feel that you end up forgetting that you're dealing with grief because your mind's moving on really fast, but then it comes back, and that's literally on a daily basis. So compared to neurotypical, we would be facing it a lot more intensely, but coming in constant waves, which is very hard to pause, especially with the ADHD brain. Also, distancing yourself from like peers and your interests or your hobbies, your friends, your families, whilst really sort of processing and getting acceptance of the situation. And another point is that having poor school and workplace performance, because grief, like, imagine a person or a pet being in your life for so long and they all of a sudden leave. Like, how do you mentally process that? So that's another part of dealing with that. So it's best to articulate that across to your work colleagues or your manager, and even in your school or education place, that you're really dealing with a tough situation. Another point is that you'll find it difficult learning new material, and I think that's really believed. I think that's really a part of dealing with the multiple emotions and the thoughts, and the freshness of the situation, as your brain is so scattered. Impulsivity, this is another challenging part of the ADHD and grief as well, because you can indulge in habits sometimes which are good for your well-being and help you get through. So for me, it was fine art or bullet journaling, brain dumping, which really helped me get my scattered thoughts out onto paper. So that was really something which I've been trying in the sort of last 2 years, which has helped me through adverse and difficult situations. Um, However, other detrimental habits can happen, such as getting involved in substance misuse, junk food, sugar, and other things, which, if you get stuck in a loop, can end up compromising your well-being. And especially if you haven't dealt with grief, and if you're dealing with shame and guilt and depression, which are also comorbid parts of ADHD. Um, and another symptom is actually having trouble eating or sleeping, which kind of overlaps. You can end up either oversleeping or not sleeping at all, or eating loads or not eating at all. So it can really ADHD and these symptoms of grief can vary on a day-to-day basis and also on a person-to-person basis. People with ADHD can internalize the grief. So with ADHD comes rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So this is where people with ADHD face a lot of rejection, and this, I guess, could be felt in a way where you feel very abandoned and rejected in this world, because your closest people are leaving you, and this can be very paralyzing and overwhelming. This emotion, to a person with ADHD, um, because on a day-to-day basis we feel rejection from other people over certain things, and we also get called hypersensitive people. So, for example, my granddad, he passed away literally a few weeks ago, and I had really strong guilt about the fact that he was very concerned for my well-being because of certain adversities and challenges that I've been through, and that's kind of what his perception was of me before he passed on. So the fact of this situation, like, I did go through that feeling of feeling rejected or feeling isolated and stuff, but then I had to rewire it with the fact that, look, I've been trying to develop my well-being and myself over the years, and if I can improve my well-being and stuff, then in a way, like, it will give me closure to feel that I am fulfilling his dream or wish. That, so that's really one way which I've learned to tackle with the intrusive thoughts, to back them up with facts. taking vitamins and like some people take medication to manage ADHD. And what I would advise is, even if you are going through this tough period, is to try to stay on top, because it can really add an edge onto dealing with grief and the situation. Finally, art has been really helpful for me over the years, like since I was young, in a therapeutic way, but especially through the saddest moments. And really, like, even doodling and drawing has really helped me out. I did in my A levels during my school. I had done a whole case study of art based on grief, death, and life. And this is where you can see this oil pastel based art piece, which is based on the graveyard, and autumn, which really got me attuned into having nature and art as my therapy to deal with life. So that's been really helpful. So yeah, just like feel free to doodle and put your mind and attention to something else other than you, and really just sort of let it flow. And remember that everybody experiences grief differently, and those with ADHD and other neurodivergent conditions can experience grief and other emotions a lot more intensely. So the main thing is being kind and trying to see the world through their lens, because a person with ADHD and other neurodivergent conditions can react more intensely to situations, or completely differently to the way neurotypicals would respond. So do not make it worse for them. It's not nice, and that can actually make their well-being worse. So learn to be kind. If you are feeling that you are very overwhelmed and you do need somebody to talk to, reach out to your family, your friends, and your loved ones if you can. Or otherwise, if you're in a really in a crisis, mental health crisis, then get in touch with the Samaritans or the Muslim Youth Helpline, or Mind, which can give you tips and help you in certain ways to get back on track with your well-being. Remember that everybody experiences grief differently, and those with ADHD experience it a lot more different compared to the majority of the neurotypical world. So we may respond to grief in a more intense or completely different way than you would respond, but being kind is the most important part. And also, if you do feel that this video was beneficial for you and can be beneficial to somebody with ADHD who's dealing with grief, please forward it on.